Recently, Bleach celebrated its 21st anniversary, and to celebrate Bleach turning 21, I wanted to list off my 21 favorite characters in the series. At 21, I have Renji, and I know, funny, haha, he sucks, he loses a lot, he's weak. I'm not gonna deny the allegations, because at this point, they're not allegations. Renji is guilty as charged. However, one thing I will never let the Bleach community say about Renji is that he's a poorly written character, because that is not true. I would go as far as to say that by the end of the Soul Society arc, Renji is one of the characters in the show that has had the most amount of character development. Renji is one of the characters that we got to see as early as the Aizen of the Shinigami arc, and by the end of the Soul Society arc, they are two completely different characters. The mental struggle that he faced during the Soul Society arc on whether he should save Rukia, should he help her, should he not, and I feel like people don't even bring up his backstory. Being childhood friends with Rukia, and both of them pretty much growing up and watching their childhood friends pass away in front of them. So all of that plays a role in making Renji one of my favorite characters in the series. You want to talk about compelling backstory and great character development, he fits that mold perfectly. At 20, I have Nemu, and it's funny having her next to Renji because I feel like the way that they both grew on me is completely different. Whereas Renji grew on me over the course of a lot of episodes, Nemu was flash in the moment, just one episode, bang. 1000-Year Blood War Cour 3, arguably one of the best episodes in that core, completely shifted my perspective on Nemu and made her one of my favorites in the show. Nemu was a character that for the longest time, it was very difficult to get a grasp as to like what her character was because they made her very ambiguous, like very specific moments that would make me wonder what's up with Nemu. What is her character all about? Like Uryu and Mayuri fighting in the Soul Society arc after Uryu put a massive hole into after the Uryu and Mayuri fight where Nemu healed Uryu. What's up with that? Why would she do that? What are her intentions? I don't know. I didn't know for the longest time. And in one episode of 1000-Year Blood War, it just takes one episode, all of it paid off. All of it answered. We find out that she's pretty much version 7 and she basically lacks all autonomy and just works for Mayuri until it's time to save Mayuri, where she takes control for herself for the first time and sacrifices herself in the same episode that we find out everything about her she's taken from us. I really do think that that's top 2 episode in Cour 3. Beautiful execution. At 19, I have Shunsui. I know people absolutely love Shunsui. But when I think of Shunsui, I always think back to that Chad fight because I remember when I made my Soul Society video, one of the things that I said was, why couldn't Chad beat this guy? But little did I know how much of a monster Shunsui actually is. I think he unquestionably has one of the hypest Bankai reveals in Bleach. The way it was animated, absolutely chef's kiss. I remember somebody broke down the meaning of Shunsui's Bankai and I was like, oh my gosh, this Bankai has deeper writing than some anime. And that's not even a joke. It goes without saying, Shunsui has probably one of the most captivating personas in all of Bleach, just constantly laid back. I also think him being one of the oldest tenured captains alongside Unohana and Ukitake is very cool, and the fact that they made him the new head captain, on one hand it was very surprising, but on the other hand it's, who else would it be? He's perfect for that role. So Shunsui is up there. He has some of my favorite fights. I remember during the Soul Society arc, him and Ukitake versus Yamamoto. That was pretty epic. During Yorankar Saga, he fought Stark. This guy is a part of so many big moments. Like, yeah, he might be higher. At 18, I have Jugrum, and Jugrum is one of the characters that has potential to go so high up. When I was talking about episodes in Cour 3 and I mentioned the Nemu episode, I said it's top 2. The other one that would be up there is Jugrum versus Bazb. The relationship that Jugrum and Bazb have, or had, it's one of the best dynamics in all of Bleach. I think it goes without saying that it's a masterpiece. Pretty heartbreaking seeing Bazb always trying to be Jugrum's North Star, teaching Jugrum the ways, but then being pinned against his best friend when Yhwach decides, this is my protege, Jugrum is my second in command. Their final fight where Jugrum mercilessly puts Bazb down was also pretty heart-wrenching. I would say for the most part, this is the episode that made Jugrum one of my favorite characters in Bleach. Of course, being Yhwach's second in command holds some weight, but this was one of the best episodes in 1000-Year Blood War, so I don't think it's unreasonable to say that this episode elevated Jugrum and Bazb as well. At 17, I have Uryu, which is, I guess it's a little bit fitting that he's right next to Jugrum, seeing as they have a little bit of a connection there. They're right next to each other, so I pretty much hold these characters in like similar regard. They're pretty much, they could be intertwined. I gave Uryu the nod though, because as much as what I love what he's doing in 1000-Year Blood War, he's been with us. Like, he's been with us since the start. He's been with us since Bleach OG. You're gonna see some of my biases come out. Yes, I love the characters that have been there for a long time. I love the characters that were part of OG Bleach, and Uryu is that guy. Uryu is that guy. I do want to say I'm aware that what he's doing in 1000-Year Blood War is anime exclusive and it wasn't there in the manga for the most part. Wow, they did him justice. They're doing him some justice. Being one of the only Quincy's in the show definitely gives him some bonus points, at least the only one doing anything. His father seems to be content with just letting the world burn. Okay, man. One of my favorite moments in Bleach, and I talked a little bit about this earlier when I talked about Nemu, but his fight with Mayuri, I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this, but that was the first fight that made me like get up out of my chair. I'm not even joking. I literally stood up out of my chair, had to take a breather, had to stop watching Bleach for a little bit because I'm like, what did I just watch? I have to process that. That fight was so good. It's one of my favorite in the arc. His fight with the wind scythe dude, the wind scythe jobber, was also pretty cool. Uryu was putting in so much work during Soul Society. Oh my lord. He had a phenomenal fight with Senjumaru that I'm just remembering right now. His fight with Ichigo, where he put a hole in his chest. Oh my gosh. Uryu might be higher. Who made this list? Me? Clearly not when I was in a right state of mind. Whatever though. I'll just edit this out. Next up I have Orihime, which I can already see this going over well with the people that love fights and love scrapping. I'm sure they're big Orihime fans, right? It's funny how Orihime comes from a broken household, was raised by her brother. Her brother passes away. She pretty much has nobody from her childhood. Oh my gosh. She lived a horrible life and is still one of the most optimistic, outgoing, and just positive characters in the entire show. And she maintained this attitude with everything she went through during the Urankar saga, like Okiora. What's that one around? Loli? Is that her name? Loli? Manoli? Something like that. In Fortnite terms, Orihime was pretty much, she was captured, kidnapped, and abused. And still, despite everything that she endured throughout that arc, like watching Ichigo pretty much die, but despite all of it, she was the one that didn't end up changing. She was the one that changed Okiora, because when you have a character like Okiora that can't even grasp simple concepts like human interaction, connections, and bonds, which honestly real, it takes somebody like Orihime who wears her emotions on her sleeves and has extremely strong and meaningful bonds with pretty much everybody she's close to change him. And of course Orihime was in Fullbringer, Thousand Year Blood War, you name it, but this is what makes her so great in my eyes. I love Orihime's character. Next up I have Tozen. What is it, 15? This is gonna be in tiers anyways, it doesn't matter, tiers are all interchangeable. Anyways, Tozen, first of all, talk about an epic design. Second off, talk about an epic Bankai. But let's talk about him, because oh my gosh, what is he, the goat of justice? Pretty tragic backstory. One of his friends passed away in the Soul Society, and guess what happened? No justice. So you know what Tozen became? The god of justice. Tozen ends up being a guy that is honestly not that bad of a guy. It's clear that his heart and his morals are in the right place, but he has lost sight of true justice. No pun intended. He lost sight of true justice after suffering injustice. So he sides with Aizen, shocking reveal by the way. And then this leads us to his fight with Hisagi and Kamamura, where he is pretty much at the pinnacle of having lost the plot. It's a pretty noble take on a revenge plot line, because Tozen doesn't seek revenge for selfish reasons. Tozen seeks revenge for the injustice that his friend suffered. So can you even call that revenge to begin with? I don't know. Tozen's entire story has me feeling philosophical now. That's why he's up here. And next up at 14, I have Yoruichi, the last character that I have in this sort of third tier. I will say I don't think her writing is as good as a lot of the characters that I have below her, but Bleach is full of extremely well-written characters. Not to say that Yoruichi has poor writing, because she does not, but this might be one of the ones where my reasoning is as simple as I just think she's epic. But that's the beauty of an opinion. It can be so irrational and stupid, and I still have it, right? Some of the best fights in the series for sure, like the fight with Askin is the one that stands out to me the most. In the Soul Society arc, she also put in a lot of work. Her versus Soifone, her versus Byakuya, not really a fight, but she steps in, saves Ichigo, and then goes on to teach him how to learn Bankai in 3 days. She's a character that's been there from the start, and the main cast wouldn't be where they're at without her. You know, say what you want, say that she's not uberly well written, whatever. You can never say that she's not important, because she absolutely is, without a doubt. Now I'm going into tier 2, where, you know, in the previous tier, Uryu above Yoruichi, fair. Shunsui above Orihime, whatever, sure. But it's all opinionated, it's all subjective, it's not objective. Because if it was objective, Yuhabaha wouldn't be next up. I think if I put my feelings aside and I just talked about facts, Yuhabaha would be what, like top 3 character in Bleach without a doubt. Blade is Me for sure is the best written episode, possibly in the big 3. Like, let's not put limiters on ourselves. Let's talk about what it is. Yuhabaha has been there from the jump. I've seen that manga panel where his name is censored in the manga at the very start of the series. A lot of times I see people say, oh my gosh, how did he do it? How did he foreshadow, you know, for such and such author, Oda? And the whole time it's a change that was made retroactively. This is not retroactive. Yuhabaha was planned for, quite evidently. And then I think if we want to talk writing wise, is he what? Like, he might just be top 3 as well. I can only think of 2 characters that in my opinion are better written than Yuhabaha, and I'm not going to say them because they're going to show up later. But yeah, maybe he should be higher, but I do have some nostalgia bias towards my favorite arc in the series, Soul Society. So, but now it's getting paradoxical because you can't even say that Yuhabaha wasn't a part of that, because he was. was. Like, I don't know. Now that I think about it, this might be another one of those cases that I'm gonna edit this out. Could he be higher? Absolutely. But keep in mind, within the tiers, everything is pretty much interchangeable. At 12, I have Mayuri, which I don't know. Mayuri is peak. I love Mayuri. Man, why is Bleach Cast so good? It makes videos like these hard. First of all, this man is like the unspoken hero of the Soul Society, which is funny because he gives off extremely creepy and odd vibes. But the Soul Society would quite literally be in shambles without him in the research department. Second off, if you're a part of the research department, why are you so good at fighting too? Has this guy ever lost? I think this guy has like a 100% win rate. So if you like fights and you like scraps, then you might just like Mayuri too. But his character is very deep, of course. We saw it after the Nemu episode, which I've already yapped about because I love that episode. Finding out that he was essentially saved by Urahara because Urahara was the one that really saw value in Mayuri. And I will always love Mayuri for the sole fact that when he was introduced, couldn't stand him. The way that he acted in that Uryu fight, the way that he tried to get information out of Ikaku, a lot of little stuff that he did in the Soul Society arc where like, I don't like this guy. But I believe that's almost the point. You're not meant to like this guy. He's meant to be off-putting. But what makes him so special is that I think that regardless of that, he's just lovable anyways. I also believe he's Kubo's favorite character if I'm not mistaken, which honestly, Kubo, you have good taste. At 11, I have Grimmjow. Wow, I really liked Grimmjow when I made this. I know that for the longest time, I even had Grimmjow in like my top 5 at one point. I still think he's very cool, and the entire section of the Urankar saga that was pretty much just focused on him, so good. But then after that, he's not seen for the rest of the Urankar saga. He's not seen for Fullbringer, and it takes a while to see him in Thousand Year Blood War, and when we do see him, he hasn't done anything so far. I feel like that's what's holding him back in my eyes, because other than that, the design you got down, the resurrection you have 100% down. I love his personality, temper, his hot-headedness. I love characters like that, you know, characters like Bakugo, but Bakugo is in his own little fight right now. But for the most part, when Grimmjow's in a fight, oh, it's really good. The trilogy with Ichigo, do I even need to say it? Grimmjow might be another one of those characters that I like for ignorant reasons. It's just a little bit of a complex issue because I do wish that we got to see more Grimmjow, but also Grimmjow doesn't make sense outside of the Urankar saga. But in the screen time that he got that little portion of the Urankar saga, he nailed it and made a hell of an impression. At 10, I have Gin. Gin, kind of like Nemu, is a character that was purposely nebulous. I remember when I was watching Bleach for the first time blind, I thought Gin was just a bad guy and we needed to keep an eye out on him. Turns out the only person that should have kept an eye out on Gin was Aizen. That plot twist was, it might have been something that I should have expected, but I didn't. Like, truthfully, I did not see that moment coming whatsoever. And I think that's why I like his character so much, because throughout the Soul Society arc, Gin is portrayed as this sneaky, sly guy, even down to his character design, being snake-like, eyes always closed. What's up with this guy? Fighting Toshiro, gaslighting Momo, turning on them alongside Tozen and Aizen at the end of the Soul Society arc. Everything I thought about Gin was completely wrong. And that's exactly how Kubo drew it up to deceive idiots like me that believe everything they see. Yeah, I thought Gin was a bad guy. Yeah, his plot twist where he turned on Aizen blew me back, blew me away. What a compelling character, and a character that literally pulled me by the strings as if I was the puppet. And part of it is also my unique circumstances, because when I got into Bleach, I knew that Aizen was a bad guy. That's one of the things that I was spoiled about. I wasn't 100% blind. I knew Aizen was bad. I knew Aizen was evil. So when Aizen turned at the end of the Soul Society arc, I was still taken aback because I was surprised by how intricate it was pulled off, but I knew that Aizen would turn evil. I knew that would happen. I had no clue that Gin was actually good all along, and I had no clue that he would turn on Aizen, so it almost felt like the next best thing. At number 9, I have Byakuya. You know, you want to talk about character and character development, it doesn't get much more obvious than Byakuya. So I don't really feel like I need to break that aspect of his character down. We all seen it, aside from having quite the epic change of heart. Something I really appreciate about Byakuya is that we get these really subtle moments after the Soul Society arc where we find out he really did change. Like in the Urankar saga, when we find out Rukia and Renji are in Wekamundo because Byakuya allowed them to do so. During the Fullbringer arc, when Byakuya says an enemy of Ichigo is an enemy of mine, little lines like that might be easy to overlook and not think much of, but they really hold a lot of weight. And then all of it culminating with the epic moment in Thousand Year Blood War. Of course, I think this is like, what, a top 3 episode in all of Thousand Year Blood War? All of it. Not just Core 1, not just Core whatever, all of it. When he asked Ichigo to protect the Soul Society, absolute cinema, absolute peak character writing. Talk about a full circle moment. The only thing that gets more full circle than that is the blade is me. To think that at one point in the story, Byakuya was so ahead of Ichigo that he was able to one-tap Ichigo without Ichigo even realizing what had happened. Thousand Year Blood War, Ichigo, protect the Soul Society. peak. Like, come on. Do I even need to go overboard with the fact that I think he has one of the coolest bankais in the series? Byakuya is also one of the characters in the series that made me laugh the most. Not because he's outwardly funny, but he just throws in these unnecessary quips. He's just such a smack talker. But yeah, Byakuya carried early Bleach and then proceeded to add on to his legacy after that. So yeah, of course he has to be up here. Next up at number 8, this is gonna be bad. Like this is gonna be controversial. At number 8, I have Soy Phone. Listen, humans are irrational creatures. Sometimes we like stuff and there's no rhyme or reason as to why we like it. We just know that we gravitate towards it. So just give me one freebie, okay? Give me one pick that makes absolutely no sense. I like Soy Phone. It's that simple. Do I think that she's probably the worst written character on this entire list? Yeah. Do I think she's the least important character on this entire list? Yeah. But do I think her Shikai is awesome? Of course I do. Do I think she has the coolest bankai in all of Bleach despite literally never working and never killing anybody with it? Yeah, I do. I do think that. She's a stealthy ninja that throws hands and has a massive rocket launcher. Like, she's cool, okay? It's simple. We all have a character that we don't really know why we like them, but we like them. Let me have this one. Let me have one. But with that said, I think that we're finally approaching the last tier. Within this final tier, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Every character that I'm about to list off, all 7 of these characters, depending on the day, depending on how I feel, could literally be my favorite character in Bleach. And at number 7, I have Rukia. I know it might be a little surprising, I suppose, because she's my channel icon, but I mean, I made this channel icon before I even watched Bleach. I just picked her because she was like one of 3 characters I knew of. Granted, though, I do think that she was a phenomenal character by all means. I did tackle her backstory when I talked about Renji, but obviously she has a lot more depth than Renji does. I think being the vessel for the Hogyoku says enough. I think that says enough. She was the crux of my favorite arc in Bleach for numerous reasons, like the aforementioned Hogyoku being inside of her, and then of course the basic plot line of Ichigo trying to get his friend back, okay? The deeper plot line of her and Byakuya, the promise that Byakuya made to uphold the law but also protect Rukia. It all gravitates around her. It all centers around Rukia. And if you're at the center of my favorite arc in Bleach, then it stands to reason that you would be one of my favorite characters in the series. If you ask me, I think that makes sense. That's not even mentioning stuff like her giving Ichigo's powers back in the Fullbringer arc, her Bankai in Thousand Year Blood War Core 2, and anything past Soul Society arc, because even though Rukia is still a great character and she continues to develop past that, my favorite version of Rukia is OG Bleach Rukia, early Bleach Rukia, Agent of the Shinigami arc Rukia, Soul Society Rukia, when she still had a little bit of joy, a little bit of a funny bone. I don't know what happened. I don't know why Rukia stopped being funny and quirky and silly. Granted, I still love her character. She's in tier 1 for a reason, but I do miss that one little detail about her character. At number 6, I have Urahara, and it's funny because I said, if you're at the center of my favorite Bleach arc, then yeah, you might be one of my favorite characters. I feel like that's gonna be a trend that you're gonna see from here on out. Rukia, Urahara, and everybody from here on out all played a major role in the Soul Society arc. I do like Urahara's relationship with the Soul Society, where he is so pivotal and essential to the Soul Society, yet he remains distant and disconnected from the Soul Society arc at the same time. He kind of reminds me of Sasuke's role in relationship to the Hidden Leaf. But then you take Sasuke and you amplify his brain power by like 500, and then you make him a silly little candy shop owner, and you have one of the best characters in Bleach, Urahara. I mean, no, but seriously, Urahara, I want to talk about a lot of why I like him, but a lot of the reason why I like him is in relationship to another character that you're going to see later on. So that might have to be addressed in tandem. But I will say some of my favorite Bleach moments that make Urahara stand out, in my opinion, is of course when he saves Ichigo in the rain. And then also funny when he just got this random like 9-10 episode flashback during the Arrancar saga, except for the fact that it wasn't random because Urahara is actually behind everything. I genuinely view Urahara as like one of the 2 backbones of Bleach, keeping everything together from the very beginning, from before episode 1. But next up, cracking the top 5. Keep in mind this is all interchangeable, but I have Kenpachi. Going from Urahara to Kenpachi is funny because they're almost like on the opposite side of the spectrum. Kenpachi might not have the wits of Urahara. Kenpachi might not be behind everything like Urahara, but dang it, like when Kenpachi gets screen time, you watch. It doesn't matter who you watch, okay? If you're a fan of Bleach, you watch. If you're a power scaler, you watch. If you're not a fan of Bleach, you still watch. He's electrifying. It's as simple as that, right? He has very underrated writing. I will say that. Now that I'm thinking about it, Kenpachi has very underrated writing, but I like him because he's cool. Sometimes it just boils down to that. I think he's cool, and unlike Soy Phone, he actually wins his fights. Next up, I have Okiura, and Okiura was my favorite character in Bleach for a long time, especially after the Arrancar saga. I think those 3 episodes of Ichigo fighting Okiura are so freaking good. Although the main reason why I have Okiura so high is, of course, his writing. I've already gone over it to some extent when I talked about Orihime and how Ulquiorra had these nihilistic viewpoints and Orihime was able to kind of pull him out of it before he passed away. There's a lot more nuance to it in his lines of dialogue and his interactions with other characters and other Espada like Grimmjow, Noidora, etc. Arguably the best written character in the show, and the only way you could fully understand is by reading and or watching Bleach. So seeing as, in my opinion, he's the best written Espada, he has the strongest presence, then it's pretty evident why he would be one of my favorite characters in the show, and obviously my favorite Espada. I love Ulquiorra. He carried a big portion of Bleach for me. But next up in my top 3, and I'm feeling pretty strong about this top 3, I have Toshiro. For the longest time, I didn't understand, why do people slander Toshiro so much? It doesn't make sense to me. Why do people slander him? But then I realized, even LeBron has haters. Sometimes when you're too good at what you do, when you're too popular, when you're too epic, when you're too famous, when you're too strong, people are just gonna dislike you for being all of the above. And in my opinion, like that's what's happening with Toshiro. I'm not sure. I've seen some Toshiro slander. A lot of it calls him a Bankai spammer. If I was in Bleach, I would be spamming my Bankais, especially if I had that Bankai. If I had Daigo and Hyorimaru, I'd be, come on. That's like a top 3 Bankai to me. If there was an MC in Bleach besides Ichigo, it would be Toshiro. Tell me who was the one person throughout the entirety of the Soul Society arc who was on Aizen and Gin's case. Soul Society Toshiro, that's my favorite iteration of his character. Name another character besides Ichigo that has had a major fight in every single arc of the series. Soul Society, Arrancar Saga, Fullbringer arc, 1000-Year Blood War, you name it, Toshiro is there, and he's using his Bankai as he should, and he's beating somebody up. Even Shunsui said in a couple years Toshiro's gonna surpass him. Like, this kid is a prodigy. I will say he could be doing a little bit more in 1000-Year Blood War, but I digress. Top 3 character in my opinion, without a doubt. But at number 2 I have Ichigo. Yeah, about time we get to Ichigo. This guy's mixed with everything, isn't he? Honestly, the fact that he's Soul Reaper, normal guy, Fullbringer, Quincy, like, yeah, that's not really why I like Ichigo, because Ichigo was up on my list before any of that was even revealed. He just wants to protect the people close to him. Honestly, come on, that's real. You know, in an anime about being able to see ghosts and all these spirits and hollows and Bankai and all this, you know, fictional stuff, Ichigo is just down to earth, real and relatable. And it's funny because I think that's Ichigo's strongest strength. The other people have a completely opposite opinion and think, oh, Ichigo, he just wants to protect his friends. That's lame. I will say one of the moments in my opinion where Ichigo just shot up in my ranking is during the Fullbringer arc. The Fullbringer arc did so much for Ichigo as a character, and I can't believe people told me that it was filler because it was so good. But I love that moment when Ichigo tells Ginjo that he is willing to kill Tsukishima, because up until that point Ichigo's just been like, no, I'm a good guy, I don't kill people, and I don't whatever. But to see Ichigo develop to the point where he's willing to kill somebody over his friends in the Fullbringer arc, peak. And then 1000-Year Blood War, we don't even got to talk about it, do we? Protect the Soul Society, the entire Blade is Me episode, the way he's fighting Yuhabaha, the fact that he got his true Bankai, gets again, you should show it. Yeah, this guy's peak. I'm not explaining anymore, I made my case, it's over. But number 1, my favorite character in Bleach as of right now, how I'm feeling, it's Aizen. It's gotta be Aizen. It has to be Aizen. I don't think it could be anybody else. I've said this a couple times. The reason I got into Bleach was because I just finished One Piece, and in One Piece, I love One Piece. I didn't think that there were any villains that were like, oh my gosh, that was peak. But then I hear all this talk about Bleach has one of the greatest villains of all time, and his name is Aizen. So I said, let me check this out. I knew he would be bad. I knew he would be evil. So in the Soul Society, when he's all nice and stuff, I knew that was a facade. Everything else, I was completely blind to. I had no idea that Aizen had his fingerprints on every single thing from the beginning of the series, even before then. Let me get back to something I was talking about, Yuhabaha. I love the way that Kubo writes. None of this is retroactive. None of this is a change that he made in hindsight, like, maybe Aizen could be a part of this. No, he has had all of this planned. I think Aizen is one of the greatest testaments to Kubo's writing, and Kubo's writing might be one of the greatest I've seen in anime ever. This is also applicable to like Urahara and Ichigo and Yuhabaha as well. I think that those 4 characters are the greatest examples of Kubo's excellent writing, but in my opinion, like above all else, Aizen stands atop, alongside having Kyoko Suigetsu, which is my favorite Shikai in the show. And I'm so hyped to see what he does in 1000-Year Blood War, because they need him. The Soul Society, it's looped back around to the point where no, he's no longer in Muken. They need him now. Yeah, just what a peak character. I miss talking about Bleach. Oh my god, I could talk about Bleach forever. So those are my 21 favorite characters in Bleach. If you want to drop your 21 favorite characters, go ahead. It's a lot though. 21 is a lot. If you're here, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care, everyone. Peace.